They had information about other attacks. When it first happened, everyone was in favor of it. Now you get the Speaker of the House of Representatives who says, I'm shocked to find out this was happening, and she was briefed at the time. And when you say to people, well, we had to do this to save other lives, they say, well, yes, but they could give you bad information. And you say, well, let me ask you this. If I caught him on September 10th, and I waterboarded him because I knew the attack was coming, and I got the information and stopped the attack, would it have been a good thing? And they say, well, that's not realistic. Well, tell that to all of the families who lost loved ones on September 11th, 2001. It was very real. And I think what has happened, Lynn, is people have suspended disbelief. They've averted their eyes and said, well, that was a bad thing that happened once. It can't happen again.
And you think it could happen again?
It most certainly could.
On that note, we're going to invite our viewers to tell us what you think. What do you think about our remembrance of September 11th? I'm sure you have your own memories and thoughts of that day, or perhaps an experience as a rescue worker or a volunteer. So if you'd like to share them with us, you can email me. I want to know what you think. So you can email me on a couple of different ways. You can find us, It's Your Call, on the web. You go to csnphilly.com, put in the keyword IYC for It's Your Call, and that will take you to my webpage where you can leave me a comment, or you could email me directly. My address is tcn_IYC@comcastnetwork.com. As always, you can find us on Facebook, MySpace, and YouTube. And we did ask our Facebook friends how they were affected by September 11th, and also how they choose to acknowledge that day. And we're going to be sharing those comments as we go throughout the show. I want to talk more, though, about the images that are going to be made available by Lou in this upcoming documentary, and get a sense of what you feel you were able to capture by videotaping on that particular day.
Well, we were there at a time when the networks had no presence whatsoever. They were shooting from 30 blocks away using telephoto lenses. So the footage that we shot shows the actual down-to-earth picking up pieces with your hands.
The real nitty-gritty of what the volunteers were doing.
Exactly. And the volunteerism at Ground Zero wasn't just limited to that rescue effort. It was supporting the rescue effort as well, making sandwiches and bringing out coffee and things like that.
You know, I bet people don't realize that there had to be hundreds of volunteers to do that, to sustain the efforts of the paid and volunteer firefighters and emergency workers, because someone, as you said, has to feed them, has to get them water, you know, bring them supplies. I mean, we just don't even realize that there were many more people there on Ground Zero doing what they could than perhaps we even knew.
Well, it was determined at one point that for every rescue person, that there were probably 5 others supporting that. Everything from, we were going through boots like crazy because of the heat of the steel. So it wouldn't be unusual to wear 3 sets of boots in one day. And there would be folks on the end of the pile who would just be there handing out boots.
When you look at these images, if you are just now joining us, these are never before seen images of Ground Zero. You have not seen these on network news in the last 8 years. Lou has put these together in preparation for a documentary that he will be preparing for the 10th anniversary of September 11th. We're going to share some more of those and get some more of his personal experience and talk to Ed about the future of America right after this. We need to take a short break, though, so we'll be back with more in a moment.
At one point, I was up on the man lift, and I looked over and I could see just the devastation. I really remember this too. It was vivid. I looked over at my partner and I just said, look at these amazing people. Let's stop for a second, Charlie. Look. We looked, and I felt the presence of a higher power. I really did.
Transportation for It's Your Call guests provided by Preferred Car and Limousine.
I remember the first thing was you couldn't believe it. You just couldn't believe it. It was beyond the scope of imagination. It wasn't a building, it wasn't two buildings, it was blocks. Walking was almost impossible. There's no road map. You were making it as you went. Your eyes never stopped looking. That's all you did was look. With all the steel and intertwined, a shovel would just bounce off of one piece. If it hits one piece of steel, it's just going to bounce off. The only way to do it was to force your hands down under there and lift it up and put it in a bucket. That's how most of the buckets were filled. The most dangerous job site I've ever seen in my life. Just danger everywhere. But below your feet was the reason you were there.
It's a very powerful clip from Lou Angeli's documentary, Answering the Call. We are sharing some of the never-before-seen footage from that documentary on this edition of It's Your Call. We're also giving you an opportunity to tell us where you were and how you were affected and how you think America should be acknowledging September 11th each time the anniversary comes around. Lou, you were saying as we were looking at that clip that that volunteer was just one of many who came back night after night and worked throughout the night doing whatever he could.
That's, yeah, he is, we've become very good friends since then. But Jeff was part of the Metropolitan Rail System. And as soon as he was done work, he'd go down to Ground Zero until midnight or so and then go home, get some sleep. And he did it for 3 months.
And you said that it was a very dangerous situation for all of the volunteers to be in, and obviously we know that it was a collapsed building. But were the volunteers worried, concerned about those dangers, or did they just put themselves out there?
Now there's an image, and I'm not sure if we've seen it in these clips, but there's an image of a huge section of the Trade Center which is impaled into the Deutsche Bank building and just hanging over the rescuers. They didn't know if it was going to stay, drop, whatever. It was about a 6-story section. But everybody was working under it. They called it the Widowmaker. And although it never did collapse, ultimately 2 firefighters were killed in a fire subsequent to that.
Was there any plan in place to deal with this, or Ed, basically did the volunteers, the rescue workers, the EMTs, did they just kind of go by the seat of their pants, so to speak?
This was very much driven by adrenaline. Of course, there are some plans, but the enormity of this and the fact that so much of this had to be done by hand, I really don't think people appreciate, and that's why this film is going to be such a lasting tribute, but also a service to the country. People do not appreciate how very hands-on, if you pardon the expression, this was. And also what we're finding out is a lot of these responders are now starting to suffer some pretty serious health after